Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from group 7 with the members of Binti Qurnain Asofa, Hasna Husnul Khotimah, and the last Rinada. We are going to presentation about assessing listening on online learning. I will explain about observing the performance of 4 skills, and then the importance of listening, and then the basic types of listening. And then Rinada will explain about macro and micro skills of listening, and then difficulties of listening performance, and then designing an assessment task of investing listening. And Hasna Husnul Khotimah will explain about designing the assessment task, responsive listening, and then selective listening, and the last extensive listening. The first material is observing the performance of 4 skills. Before conducting a listening assessment, the teacher needs to measuring through an assessment of several combined tests, and then measuring through a single test, and then observing students' performance inside and outside the classroom, and then evaluating in alternative forms such as journal and portfolio. Because observing the performance of the listening assessment, it will be different from the assessment of other skills. If you observe the students' abilities in other skills, it can be observed in a certain form, but observing listening can only be done while it's happening right away. The next material is the importance of listening. Listening plays an important role in developing language skills because listening is the main factor in communicating. Because we listen first to what we will reveal. We therefore need to pay attention to listening as a mode of performance to assessment in the classroom. In this part, we will begin with the next material is basic types of listening. In designing the assessment, there must be criteria or objectives. And then according to Brown 2004, there are processing stages in listening performance. First, comprehending of surface structure elements such as phonemes, words, intonation, or grammatically. And second, understanding of pragmatic context. And third, determining of pragmatic context. And the last, developing the GIS, a global or comprehensive understanding. And then from this stage, we can derive 4 commonly identified types of listening performance, such as first, intensive. In intensive listening, the test is the smallest part of language, such as phonemes, word, intonation, discourse makers, and others. And then second is responsive. In responsive listening, respond appropriately to what has been heard. And the third is selective listening. In selective listening, the test taker is able to choose the most appropriate and answer based on specific information that has been heard. Okay, and fourth, the fourth is extensive listening. In extensive listening, a broader and more general understanding is needed. Usually includes the essence or main idea of what is heard. And then there are four types of listening. First, listening appreciatively.
The next material is micro and macro skill of listening. We're discussed in this section of chapter suggests that micro skill such as the following are required for conversational listening. Micro skill: discriminate among the distinctive sound of listening, retain chunks of language of different length in short-term memory, recognize English, stress patterns, word in stress and unstressed position, rhythmic structure, intonation, consonant, and their role in signaling information. Recognize reduce form of word. And next, macro skill. Recognize the communicative function of utterance according to situation participant goals. In first situation, participants goals using real-world knowledge from event IDs and undescribed predict outcome, inferlinks and connecting between events to take cause and effect and take such relation as main ID, supporting ID, given information, generalization, and explication. Difficulties of listening performance. Related to the difficulties of listening performance, the following 8 characteristics to need be considered. Adapted for Richard Dunkel, Flower Dew, Miller, as cited in Brown, 2007. Clustering, redundancy from 4 performance variable, rate of delivery, stress, and intonation. Designing assessment text, investing listening. 1. Recognizing phonological and morphological elementary are words that have the same sound but different meaning. Phonemic pair consonant. Example: the as of the word his with sis. Phonemic pairs. Vowels: the as of vowel sounds vowels. In question, example: the mention of she with she. Morphological pair add ending. Listening to past tense words or sentence in one the difficulty or challenge in listening including for advanced learner. Example in sentence, you call me. It should be that the text listening to you call me transparent in can example she can pick up me, I can pick up you.
Okay, the next material is about designing assessment task responsive listening. A question and answer format can provide some interactivity in this lower end listening task. The test taker response is the appropriate answer to a question. Aims to make the test taker able to master yes or no question and WH question and know how to get the right answer. The next material is about designing assessment task, selecting listening. A third type of listening performance is selective listening, in which the test taker listens to a limited quantity of oral input and must discern within it some specific information. A number of techniques have been used that require selective listening. The first is listening close. The second is information transfer, and the third is sentence repetition. Okay, the next material is about designing assessment task responsive listening. A question and answer format can provide some interactivity in this lower end listening task. The test taker response is the appropriate answer to a question. Aims to make the test taker able to master yes or no question and WH question and know how to get the right answer.